It's better to offend the king of hell than to provoke Ling Zhaoxue. Ling Zhaoxue, the illegitimate daughter of the Ling style family, confessed to the crown prince 3 days ago, but suffered humiliation. Ling Zhaoxue, you are naturally disabled, have a cowardly personality, stutter in your speech, and have a fierce face. How can you say you love someone like this? When all the women in the world die one day, the crown prince may consider you. Such merciless humiliation. She became the laughing stock of the world, and when she was provoked, she accepted a challenge but died on the arena. When she opened her eyes again, she was extremely sharp and launched a counterattack on the spot, intimidating everyone. Crown Prince Jun Ranye changed her evaluation and said, Ling Zhaoxue, the rumors are really untrustworthy. In fact, you are arrogant, scheming deeply, and have a cruel heart. She saw the corners of her mouth rise, her eyes slightly narrowed, and her smile was cold and bright. I like this evaluation. If I can't do it like this, I really have let down the crown prince's praise. From then on, there will be no more peace in the Shengchuan Continent, and the arrogant Ling Zhaoxue will become famous all over the world. Keywords of the novel. Killing without amnesty. There is no pop-up window after the supreme madness, Killing without amnesty. The complete collection download of the Supreme Madness TXT, Killing without amnesty. The latest chapter reading of the Supreme Madness. Wedge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 69 book bar. www.69shu, pro, time. 11.30, location. Washington, USA. The dark curtain falls, and at this moment of midnight, it is the beginning of all darkness. In the underground of a large shopping mall in Washington, USA, there is an extremely dark experimental base hidden, where dozens of scientists hired from all over the world are conducting experiments that destroy human nature with heavy funds. For example, cloning the human body, studying viruses, and creating poisonous humans. And now, they have embarked on another more ambitious experiment. It is to use chips as carriers, transplant them into the human body, undergo biochemical reactions, create an immortal superhero, and achieve their goal of ruling the world. For this experiment, they didn't know how many people had done it, but none of them succeeded, and all were declared dead within half a minute of the chip being implanted in the brain. The experimenter must have a physique that is 1 in 10,000. 3 months ago, a person came into their sight. Yu Gu. Gender. Female nationality. Dual nationality in the UK and China. Born on June 11, 1994, in the British royal family, he is a Sino-Japanese mixed-race child. At the age of 3, his entire family was murdered, and his royal anthem went missing. 18 years later, a top mercenary appeared in the Chinese underworld. According to data, it was Yufenga who went missing that year. She was a legend wandering in the international underworld, with a calm and composed mind, a quick and sharp mind, and an unparalleled ability to adapt quickly. She is the first genius of the entire Dark Empire and the only heir to the imperial family. Her hypnosis skills are invincible, her one-handed long-range shooting hits 100 shots, her ghostly speed can make her disappear instantly on flat ground, and she is also a ninja in the Japanese world who can easily escape by flying eaves, walls, and cities, blending with anything. She is a legend of the god of war, an unbeatable myth. The dark base of the United States deployed hundreds of assassins, but each time they failed and returned. July 21, 2013. The black market in the United States has caused a huge wave. The appearance of a piece of dragon jade sparked a competition between the black and white factions. It is rumored that this dragon jade is a divine jade with life, and priceless treasure that can make people immortal or take them to heaven and earth. Its value on the black market has exceeded $1 billion. A month ago, Yuquang came to the United States. Entering the territory of the United States is undoubtedly like a sheep entering a tiger's mouth. The dark base of the United States is mobilized, surrounded by 300 top assassins, and finally captured. Although the losses were heavy, they also received unexpected gains, with Long Yu in the hands of Yuquanga. The secret door in the center of the base was opened, and a blond man with tightly wrapped body and only a pair of eyes exposed walked in. "Where's the person? Have you handed over the things yet?" The man's voice was hoarse and low, exuding a sinister aura. "Returning to the master, not yet. This Yuquanga is very stubborn, and we haven't said a word since we captured her. Bring the people up." The dark room in the underground center was opened, and the control mechanism was activated. An iron cage slowly appeared and rose into the air. Inside the iron cage was a young girl covered in blood, tied with iron chains and unable to move at all, clearly experiencing torture. The girl slowly looked up, her sharp and domineering eyes like hunting cheetahs, landing on the face of the newcomer. Although her face was covered in blood stains, we could still see her blurry features, which were definitely peerless. With such a domineering and arrogant soul, even though she was now a prisoner, her gaze and demeanor were still frightening. "Yuquang. Where the hell is Long Yu?" The blond man shouted, his gaze fixed on the girl in the cage. Yuquanga looked at him, his cracked lips slightly tugging at him, mocking and disdainful. "J.K., you finally came. J.K., founder and largest boss of the American Dark Base." The blond man was very vigilant, with no relaxed expression on his face. "Yes, I'm here, so you finally agreed to speak up and tell me where Long Yu is. I'll give you a way out." Yuquanga sneered, with a sharp edge hidden in her eyes. She wouldn't believe this kind of nonsense. This kind of person destroys human nature and doesn't even have the most basic principles. I was delusional about using her as an experiment to become a biochemical superhero, and even more so, I was delusional about obtaining the divine jade pendant in her hand. Xinyu is a treasure passed down by the imperial family. In the tragedy of the royal family's downfall, she was the only one who survived. Her parents who loved her the most lay down in front of her. At that time, she was still a carefree princess. When the tragedy occurred, Xinyu was tightly held in her hand. She vividly remembered that Xinyu emitted a strong light, surrounded it, and saved her life. She woke up on the streets of London, and Long Yu disappeared for no reason. Later, she wandered on the streets and was adopted by someone at the age of 4. At 5, she began learning various killing skills and cultural etiquette from multiple countries. At 10, she began to carry out missions. At 16, she killed enemies and defected to the organization. At 18, she became a top mercenary in the world's underworld, which everyone feared. She knew that the American Dark Base had always wanted to catch her, and as long as they didn't step into their territory, they wouldn't be able to succeed in their lifetime. However, the sudden appearance of Long Yu made her actively enter the trap they had set up. Dragon Jade is something belonging to the imperial family, no one should want to pry. "I've been waiting for you to come." Yuquanga suddenly spoke, her smile cold and bright, with a hint of bloodthirsty. The blond man narrowed his eyes and was extremely alert, but his heart was slightly uneasy. "What do you mean?" "The meaning is that I have always wanted to wait for you, to see you die without a burial ground, to see your hard work destroyed in an instant, to let you know how wrong it was to choose me." The cold voice of the wild song rang out, with a cold and clear heart. "Just you. A prisoner now. It's easier for me to crush you than to crush an ant." The blond man snorted coldly, although cautious, he was also arrogant. Yuquanga didn't speak, but scanned the entire center. All the elite scientists were here, and today they are all going to hell. Let's go to hell together. The sound of madness singing comes from the depths of hell, making people shiver. She suddenly looked up, laughed wildly, and then bit her teeth hard. Drip. Drip. Dee-dee dee-dee. The rapid dripping sound suddenly rang out, and everyone stopped moving in shock. The blond man squinted and then turned his head to look at the person next to him. What noise? In the brief silence, only the eerie dripping sound was heard, mild yet also unsettling. Suddenly, a researcher with wide-open eyes and a face full of fear ran towards the door. "Run, this is a miniature human bomb, a super-powerful bomb that no instrument can detect. It has already been activated inside her body." His roar caused a panic, and the entire underground center suddenly became chaotic. People were thrown upside down, experimental equipment was knocked over, people crowded, and people pushed. "Oh my goodness! Run quickly! She wants to die with us. I don't want to die." A desperate and fearful roar. The blonde man was also shocked, turned around, and ran away. Anyone in front of him who was blocking his way was all shot to death, and the chaos was still there. The bodies were already displayed on the ground, covered in crimson. "You can't escape." The sound of wild singing came from behind. The blonde man's hand with the gun fiercely aimed at Kwanga, and there seemed to be a fierce ghost in his eyes. "You've been waiting for me, everything is in your plan, isn't it?" The voice was filled with unwilling roars. "There are still 5 seconds left. 5. 4. I said, choosing me was a mistake. I want you and all your hard work to be destroyed in an instant." There was a sneer on the corner of Kwanga's mouth. She was never a soft persimmon that could be manipulated by anyone. Death was not scary for her, what was scary was living aimlessly. The miniature human bomb had already been implanted in her body a long time ago, waiting for such a day. No matter who wanted to take her life, the end result was just one death. At the moment she received Longyu a month ago, she immediately implanted it into her body, or had already anticipated the unexpected situation she might encounter. A genius girl, with no omissions. Longyu once saved her once, and this time she was shattered to pieces. Can Longyu save her again and find her parents with her soul? Close your eyes, this moment seems like liberation. 3. 2. 1. Dee dee dee. A rapid scream. Bang bang bang. The blonde man's gun was all aimed at Kwanga, and blood bloomed. Bomb. A huge explosion sounded, with flames soaring into the sky and deafening sounds. The entire underground base was surrounded by flames, and screams were drowned out. The entire commercial center was bathed in a sea of fire. It's exactly midnight. But he saw a man in black slowly emerge from the sea of fire, with handsome features, a cold and hard expression, a head of black hair dancing behind him, dressed in a black python robe of nobility and arrogance. However, he held an unconscious young girl in his arms, with a white robe floating like a fairy. Both of them were dressed in ancient costumes, but they were transparent bodies. They were then wrapped in a beam of golden light and disappeared into the sky. Life and death in the arena. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In June, the sky was scorching hot, with the sun shining on people and sweating profusely. At this moment, in the Ling family of Phoenix, a brutal competition is underway. Bang bang bang. On the high arena, a girl in red kept beating the people under her, blood splattering on the ground, but no one pitied her. In Phoenix, there are 2 major aristocratic families, one is the Yi family and the other is the Ling family. The woman in red is the legitimate heir of the Yi family, Yi Zhaoyun, while the woman who was beaten and had no resistance was the daughter of the Ling family, an unpopular illegitimate daughter, Ling Zhaoxue. Under the arena, there were people everywhere, with the highest point being the 3 most eye-catching positions. 3 men sat there, all watching the scene on the arena. The man on the left had a cold expression, the man in the middle had a mocking expression, and the one on the right had an interesting expression, all of which were uniformly handsome. Bang 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 bang. Another series of attacks continued, and Ling Zhaoxue was fiercely thrown out, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Then, Yi Zhaoyun stepped on her chest and looked at her contemptuously. If you don't agree, kneel down and kowtow 3 times to this girl. Sigh oh, oh. Under the stands, a series of cheers erupted. Yi Zhaoyun stood on the arena, stepping on Ling Zhaoxue with one foot, squinting his eyes and enjoying the glory of this moment. That's enough. At this moment, the man with a cold expression stood up and said coldly in the stands. As soon as he spoke, all the cheers came to a sudden halt. Everyone stared at him with different expressions. This person is none other than Ling Zhaoxue's elder brother, the first young master of the Ling family, Ling Fengchen. Yi Jiaoyun was taken aback for a moment, with a hint of embarrassment on his face. Didn't Ling Fengchen really dislike this sister? What is it like to stand out for her at this time? At this moment, she had to meddle in her affairs, and to save her face, she refused. Jiaoyun, stop it. If you continue to fight, you will lose your life. Just win. At this moment, the man sitting on the right chair also stood up and said, raising his eyebrows and smiling with interest. This man's tone is completely different from Ling Fengchen's, with a look of fear that the world will not be chaotic, smiling like a fox. Yi Jiaoyun's gaze swept over the two men who were speaking, proudly raising his chin. Then he instinctively looked at the man sitting in the middle, with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. However, he realized that the man was only staring at the arena with a smile on his face, without any intention of speaking. It was as if he was watching a scene that had nothing to do with him, and she couldn't help but feel extremely frustrated in her heart. She lifted her right foot and stepped on the chest of the girl with scars on the arena, scolding coldly, "Are you satisfied?" The sound came out first, and the high-raised right ankle had not yet fallen down, but it was instantly held by a hand covered in blood. Then, with a click sound, the ankle was removed, and the abdomen was kicked hard, losing its center of gravity and flying out. A cold voice rang out on the arena, "I'm not convinced." In silence, everyone stared at the scene in amazement. It's too dramatic. How could a person who has fainted suddenly burst out with such powerful energy? The girl who had no counterattack ability on the arena slowly stood up, her clothes torn in several places, her face blue and purple, and her mouth was covered in bright red blood. At this moment, her eyes were cold and she looked down at Yi Jiaoyun who had been knocked down on the arena. Step by step, he walked towards her, then squatted down and grabbed Yi Jiaoyun's neck, slowly lifting her up. "I'm not convinced. Kneel down and beg for mercy." You are listening at novelfull.audio. I disagree. The three words are still echoing in everyone's ears. Everyone's gaze was focused on the girl who had thought she had passed out, a timid and cowardly waste recognized by the world, standing proudly on the arena with cold eyes. Yi Jiaoyun's face turned purple after being pinched, and his beautiful eyes widened, staring incredulously at the girl in front of him. What exactly happened? Why did this suddenly happen? Is the person in front of me Ling Zhaoxue? Looking at those eyes that were staring at her, they were now filled with bloodthirsty desire, and the hidden terrifying killing intent scared Yi Jiaoyun. Let go of me. Yi Jiaoyun's eyes were turned outwards, breathing was difficult, but he couldn't pass out, and his heart was extremely scared. This feeling was terrible, and he only said in a hoarse voice. Yu Kuang never expected that when she opened her eyes, she would face such a scene. Her memory was still stuck in the moment when the underground center exploded. She should have been shattered to pieces, with no possibility of survival. Looking at the girl's attire in front of her, Kwanga vaguely felt strange. Could it be Long Yu who saved her again? Bringing her soul here, away from the 21st century, what is this place? In ancient times. Surprised, but somewhat excited, she had prayed in her heart before her death, hoping to find her loving parents again. Did Long Yu hear her prayer and bring her here? Ling Zhaoxue, do you want to strangle my second sister? Let go of her now. Kwanga guessed and organized his thoughts. At this moment, an anxious shout came from below the arena. Kwanga raised his eyes and saw a pair of peach blossom eyes, slightly raised, looking passionate and carefree. At this moment, he was full of anger and anxiety. Strange memories surged into my mind, and I felt dizzy for a moment while singing wildly, but then returned to normal. This man is the young master of the Yi family, the elder brother of Yi Jiaoyun, Yi Yanzhao, who is extremely fond of this sister. Kuanga knew that the body her soul had entered was on the arena, beaten for a while, and was beaten to death by human life, which was why she intervened. But why didn't anyone stand up and speak at that time? Now that she has launched a counterattack, someone has jumped out. Humph. It's simply ridiculous. There's no reason not to repay what I owe her. Kuanga stared at him, his eyes cold and sharp. He pursed his lips but did not let go of his hand. His subordinates exerted even more force, and Yi Jiaoyun rolled her eyes, her tongue sticking out, and her legs kicking wildly. She was about to be strangled to death. Tight and loose, Yi Jiaoyun took big breaths and tears of discomfort filled the corners of her eyes. She almost thought she was going to die just now. Sobbing Yi Yanzhao was extremely uncomfortable under the gaze of Kuanga, feeling that those eyes seemed to intimidate people's hearts and souls, making him have an impulse to submit. Yi Yanzhao shook his head fiercely. What was going on with him? Looking at the young girl bathing in blood on the arena, she has a completely different temperament from the timid and cowardly figure in my impression who remains silent even after being bullied. What is wrong with her? Yi Dashao, before the competition, make a rule that the loser should kneel down and beg for mercy, otherwise they will never die, right? A cold and hoarse voice sounded, and Kuanga stood proudly, looking down at Yi Yanzhao from a high position, with a chilling smile on the corner of his mouth that captured the soul. Then he slammed the figure he was holding onto the ground and shouted loudly, "Kneel down and beg for mercy." How old are you? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kneel down and beg for mercy. These 4 words were powerful and could not be refused, causing everyone present to be shocked. Fortunately, they did not offend the unpopular Miss Ling of the Ling family. This sick cat's aggression was so terrifying. Yi Jiaoyun was thrown by Kuanga, and a mouthful of blood foam sprayed out. He curled up together, obviously in pain and unable to speak. Ling Zhaoxue, you're done. Yi Jiaoyun was also a favored master in the Yi family. Seeing his sister being so severely injured, Yi Zhaoyan was furious and flew up onto the arena, hugging Yi Jiaoyun. Woo-woo, big brother. It hurts, my feet. Yi Jiaoyun was held in Yi Yanzhao's arms and immediately burst into tears. It's humiliation, anger, shock, confusion, and unwillingness. Yi Yanzhao looked at his sister's deformed feet with heartache. At first glance, it was a bone dislocation, and the dislocation was severe. It should be the one just now. Ling Zhaoxue, you're hiding deep enough. Yi Yanzhao stared at Kuanga and said with a smile that didn't reach the bottom of his eyes, which was extremely sarcastic. Kuanga certainly knows what he means. In the past, Ling Zhaoxue was timid and cowardly, suffered from bullying, dared not be angry or speak up, and was beaten to death. Now, she is not Ling Zhaoxue, but Yuquang. Not being able to fight back has never been her style. But when I came to this unfamiliar place, I had not yet figured out the depth and shallowness of the water. I couldn't reveal my identity and show my cards, so I squinted my eyes and sang wildly, "It's just a counterattack. If I don't fight back, I'm afraid I'll be killed. Yi Dashao, don't say too much. Just follow the rules of the competition. If Yi Jiaoyun doesn't kneel down and apologize, then we still have to continue the competition until one side dies." Upon hearing the words of Kuanga, Yi Yanzhao pursed her thin lips tightly. Yi Jiaoyun was already like this. How could she continue the competition? It was clear that she wanted her life. Clenching her fists, this woman has such meticulous thoughts. Was all her previous softness disguised? Now that I have no choice but to finally reveal my true face. Yi Yanzhao disliked women with ulterior motives the most in his life, and a hint of disgust added to his eyebrows. You have already won this game, and Xiaoyun has also learned a lesson. Isn't that enough? Don't forget the original purpose of this competition. Yi Yanzhao looked coldly at Kuanga and said, wishing he could rush up and beat her up hard at this moment. Just look at his hands hanging on his side, clenching his fists tightly, obviously trying to restrain himself. He was worried about his own sister. The original purpose of the competition. Kuanga Si ignored the disgust in Yi Yanzhao's eyes and was completely unrelated. She mocked and curled her lips, turning her gaze towards the highest point below the arena. For eyes in contact, sparks colliding randomly. On the golden chair, the person was dressed in purple, full of luxury, lazily leaning against the back of the chair. It seemed casual, but a pair of glass-like black pupils flickered with a deep light, revealing their sharpness, emitting a wild and proud atmosphere. Thin lips pink, with a heart-stopping and unrestrained smile, black hair draped over the shoulders, only a purple silk slightly erect, casual but not messy. That person is the Crown Prince, Jun Ranye. Unparalleled elegance, unparalleled in the world. This description is not an exaggeration. A man whom Ling Zhaoxue admires and admires. It is also the ultimate goal of this game. Prince Ranye. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. On the golden chair, the person was dressed in purple, full of luxury, lazily leaning against the back of the chair. It seemed casual, but a pair of glass-like black pupils flickered with a deep light, revealing their sharpness, exuding a wild and proud atmosphere. Thin lips pink, with a heart-stopping and unrestrained smile, black hair draped over the shoulders, only a purple silk slightly erect, casual but not messy. That person is the Crown Prince, Jun Ranye. Unparalleled elegance, unparalleled in the world. This description is not an exaggeration. A man whom Ling Zhaoxue admires and admires. It is also the ultimate goal of this game. 3 days ago, Ling Zhaoxue mustered up all her courage and wrote a letter expressing her admiration to Jun Ranye. However, in exchange for his mocking reply, he replied, the third daughter of the Ling family is naturally disabled, with a weak personality, stuttering speech, and a fierce face. Why do you say you love her like this? When all the women in the world die one day, the Crown Prince may consider you. It was this merciless letter that drove Ling Zhaoxue to a dead end. In order to prove that I am not useless or cowardly, I resolutely accepted Yi Jiaoyun's challenge. It was more of a challenge than a challenge, just to earn an opportunity to be looked up to. And Yi Jiaoyun also liked Jun Ranye, so he seized this opportunity to beat Ling Zhaoxue to death, causing her to die. Thinking of this, Kuanga couldn't help but sneer. Ling Zhaoxue is really a foolish woman. The initial purpose. Hee hee. Kuanga murmured softly, and then his gaze met Jun Ranye with a stern expression, curling his lips. His eyes were filled with a fleeting sense of worldly charm, and Kuanga slowly spoke, Your Highness, have you looked at me with new eyes? This statement is somewhat bold and unrestrained. The people below the arena sighed in their hearts. Indeed, Ling Zhaoxue's sudden transformation was stimulated by the Crown Prince, and this emotion was still admirable. However, when they thought of the unparalleled Crown Prince standing with the third miss of the Ling family, the corners of their mouths twitched uncontrollably. It was too disharmonious and lacking in beauty. In fact, Ling Zhaoxue is not so ugly either. Her skin is tender and white, crystal clear, and her eyes are like spring water, clear and bright. She looks like a beautiful woman no matter how she looks. But if she puts the hair that covers her right cheek behind her ear, it's really not a ferocity that can be described. Which girl is good at playing with such a thing on her face? Her face is densely covered, like birthmarks, and even more terrifying than birthmarks. Haha. Jun Ranye chuckled lightly, and the maidservant standing behind him immediately put the peeled crystal grapes into his mouth. Watching Jun Ranye's enjoying squinting eyes, the expression on Kuanga's face remained unchanged. I saw him slowly stand up, his purple robe swaying in the wind. He patted the shoulder of the cold-faced man next to him and said with a smile on his face, Fengchen, it seems that our evaluation of your sister was wrong before. Miss Ling, the third lady of the Ling family, should be arrogant, cunning, and ruthless. Jun Ranye said these words with a smile. He was like a demon pouring down the world, his gaze deeply locked on Yukwanga, waiting for her reaction in silence. The people below chuckled and looked at Kwanga with disdainful mockery. However, upon hearing his words, Yufanga laughed. The gaze collided in the air, as if an invisible electric spark was generated between the two. A gust of wind blew, and their long hair danced wildly. The birthmark on their right cheek was terrifying. She suddenly snorted and said, "Your Highness, I like this evaluation. If I can't do it like this, wouldn't I have let down your praise? Don't touch her. You are listening at novelfull.audio." She suddenly snorted and said, "Your Highness, I like this evaluation. If I can't do it like this, wouldn't I disappoint your praise?" Everyone fell upside down. Is Ling Zhaoxue poisoned too deeply or something? Is this a compliment? Is it a compliment? Without waiting for everyone to finish their grudges, they saw the woman standing on the arena suddenly rise up and launch a 360-degree spin kick in an absolutely eerie posture, targeting Yi Yanzhao's face. "Damn it, Ling Zhaoxue, you're crazy." Yi Yanzhao stood on the side holding Yi Jiaoyan, squinting her eyes at Yukwanga. Unexpectedly, she suddenly turned around and kicked him in the face with a thunderous posture, without any hesitation. In shock, Yi Jiaoyan let out a loud roar, turned sideways, and raised his hand to cover his face. For Yi Yanzhao, who loves beauty as much as his life, this face is his fate. This side is just right. Kwanga's foot pressed down and aimed at Yi Yanzhao's buttocks, giving him a fierce kick. Yi Yanzhao hugged Yi Jiaoyan and was kicked off the stage. "I'm dizzy." Yi Dazhou was kicked down by that ugly monster. Oh my goodness. Ugly 8 monsters are going to die this time. Yes, yes. If Yi Dazhou fights back, the ugly 8 monsters won't die yet. The people at the scene were discussing and looking at Kwanga with all kinds of eyes. "Ling Zhaoxue, are you seeking death?" Yi Jiaoyan stood still, gritting his teeth and staring at Kwanga, who was still standing on the arena. The storm condensed in his eyes, and a murderous aura overflowed. This was truly anger. But Kwanga had no fear at all and looked back at Yi Jiaoyan with a sneer. "You took your sister to suffer from this kick today, and I spared her today. If you provoke me in the future, it won't be as simple as a single kick." Did you hear it clearly? Standing on the arena, the girl's eyes were cold and arrogant, looking down at all beings. The audience suddenly quieted down. Yi Yanzhao looked at Kwanga coldly and said, "Do you really think that this young master doesn't hit women?" The voice was measured coldly and gloomy. It was already very frustrating to be kicked off the arena by an ugly monster, and it was still kicking his butt. He was also warned, and his face was lost here. How could Yi Yanzhao swallow this breath? Kwanga laughed contemptuously and provocatively, meaning that if you don't agree, you can come over. Yi Yanzhao had not made any movement yet, but another voice rang in his ear, "Don't touch her." The voice was as cold and sharp as 1,000 years of ice, yet it exuded a resolute determination that cannot be ignored. That person stood by Jun Ranye's side, dressed in green clothes, as indifferent as this. He had an unparalleled handsome appearance, with a cold and fierce aura like an iceberg, exuding an aura of being away from strangers. The person speaking was Ling Zhaoxue's elder brother, Ling Fengchen. "Fengchen, haven't you always disliked her? Now you want to protect her as an enemy to me?" Yi Yanzhao's face was very unpleasant, and he said coldly as he stared at Ling Fengchen. Ling Fengchen just lifted his eyes lightly, concise in 4 big characters, "Don't touch him." The atmosphere was about to explode, and both of them exuded the aura of experts from their own families. Everyone held their breath, afraid of catching fire. Kwanga raised her eyebrows and looked at her. In her memory, Ling Fengchen was quiet and indifferent to her affairs. Ling Zhaoxue was somewhat afraid of this big brother and knew that Ling Fengchen did not like her. Now, it's interesting to stand out for her. Haha. Do you think I'm dead? I don't like you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Haha. Do you think I'm dead? At this moment, Jun Ranye stood up and lazily said. He just placed his hands on Ling Zhaoxue and Yi Yanzhao respectively, and the fluctuation of their breath silently subsided. Kwanga was secretly shocked. In her past life, she had studied the art of ancient martial arts, where flying flowers hurt people and folding leaves took her life. From the aura emanating from these people, it can be seen that they are all internal secrets for cultivation. She is too unfamiliar with this world, so it seems that she needs to go back and understand it well. Upon hearing this from Lord Ranye, Yi Yanzhao hummed and turned his head. Without looking at Ling Zhaoxue naturally wouldn't go to see him either. Yi Yanzhao stared at her wildly, as if trying to tear her apart and eat her. Are you looking at me with such fanatical eyes, silently confessing to me? Unfortunately, I'm not interested in you. Kwanga is not fond of Yi Yanzhao, and naturally does not make him feel comfortable. As expected, when he said this, the laughter around him began to ring, and veins sprouted from Yi Yanzhao's forehead, which was extremely angry. Ugly 8 monsters, are you too presumptuous? Confessing to you. I'm sorry. In this life, in the next life, I won't take a liking to you either. Yi Yanzhao roared angrily. Kwanga shrugged his shoulders and smiled casually, just to find something unpleasant for him. But at this moment, Jun Ranye's lazy voice rang out, Ling Zhaoxue, your violent appearance really meets my criteria for selecting servants. How about you become a personal maid for the crown prince? Ling Zhaoxue, your violent appearance really meets my criteria for selecting servants. How about you become a personal maid for the crown prince? Under the shallow sun, Jun Ranye stood there, smiling like a demon coming out of the demon realm, with a hint of demonic darkness that made people addicted and intoxicated. Jun Ranye is recognized as a beautiful man among the 4 kingdoms, and the 8 young masters rank 3rd. A young genius, proficient in both literature and martial arts, renowned for thousands of miles. Oh my, now the ugly 8 monsters have fulfilled their dreams. Yes, the crown prince's personal maid. Oh my goodness. She's so lucky. Ah. Why isn't it me who is violent? The voices of discussion echoed again, and various envious and jealous gazes were cast on Kwanga, wishing he could immediately become that person and replace her as the opportunity to become the maid of Jun Ranye. A maid. Kwanga dug her ears, she didn't hear it wrong, did she? Has even becoming a close maid become a gift? Hee, it's really funny. Kwanga hooked his lips and raised his eyebrows to look at Jun Ranye. Your Highness, don't think you're rare. We should value rarity. Yesterday, I said I liked you, which was to save face for you. I'm sorry, I changed my mind today. In my eyes, you're nothing. Hiss oh my, the voice of gasping for breath on the ground, this crazy song, she actually refused, and said such a heinous and immoral thing, it's really despicable. And how did you say that? Rare in appearance. Is scarcity precious? Is this a compliment? Is this just a satire, okay? Oh no, Ling Zhaoxue is afraid she will suffer. Is she playing hard to get? Isn't it? At this moment, even Ling Zhaoxue's eyebrows moved slightly, looking at Kwanga in some surprise. He. A series of laughter overflowed from Jun Ranye's mouth, and his gaze was a bit hazy. It was as beautiful as amber, without anger, but with a hint of conquering sharpness hidden in it. He smiled, looked up, and flew up onto the high platform, standing face to face in front of Kwanga, staring straight into his eyes. I'm nothing in your eyes, isn't I? What do you think? Kwanga sneered and asked back, her eyes never flinching. Her heart had undergone the most brutal test, but what was she afraid of in a Jun Ranye night? So quickly giving up on what you love in your heart, no longer persisting. Jun Ranye approached step by step, his face only 5 centimeters away from Kwanga's face. Kwanga did not retreat, only squinted his eyes and rudely retaliated, "What's in your heart? That's bullshit. Even if you're outstanding, what's wrong? There are many good men in the world, and the 8 young masters are all outstanding. This girl changes to love every year, and you have to wait until 8 years later to officially notify you." Ling Zhaoxue's eyes were covered in eye droppings before, and she would only take notice of you. "I'm sorry, but now I'm clear-headed. Do you dare to bet?" You are listening at novelfull.audio. 69 Book Bar. www.69shu.pro, Madam is too unrestrained. Oh. Oh my goodness. Ling Zhaoxue has really been stimulated. What did she just say? Everyone was digging their ears hard, and she said that among the 8 young masters in the world, she loves one every year. This woman is really crazy, ah. Hee, why didn't I realize you had such an appetite before? Leaving aside your face, your temperament really makes me want to. Jun Ranye's voice was long and seductive. Kwanga narrowed his eyes and quickly lifted his right hand, but strangely realized that his whole body was suppressed under a wave of energy, unable to move. In front of him was Jun Ranye's smiling face, seductive and enchanting, with his thin lips moving slightly. Kwanga could hear the 2 words behind him clearly, "Tune." With such a strong internal aura, according to the judgment of the Rainbow class, this Jun Ranye is at least a blue-level expert. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and blue are the lowest. Ling Zhaoxue's physical fitness is really poor. She defeated Yi Jiaoyan just now with a thunderous attack, almost exhausting all her strength. At this moment, she was suppressed by Jun Ranye, and she clearly had an advantage. The people below had no idea what was happening on stage. They only knew that the Crown Prince and Ling Zhaoxue were flirting together, one smiling like a demon, and the other with a cold and solemn expression like ice. Ling Fengchen remained silent, just looking from a distance, with a pensive expression on his eyebrows. Meanwhile, Yi Jiaoyan was still sulking and worried about Yi Jiaoyan's feet, which made him extremely anxious. "I felt dizzy in my mind, my legs were weak, and I couldn't stand down even when I tried to fight back. This feeling was very bad." "Don't tell me, you suddenly fell in love with me." Kwanga stared at Jun Ranye and suddenly spoke out. "Ha ha ha." The next second, the sound of wild laughter came from Jun Ranye's mouth, wild and wild. The people below stretched their necks one after another, striving to know what Ling Zhaoxue had said, which would make the Crown Prince burst into laughter like this. What's funny about Crazy Song staring at him? That's enough. Unable to move and still able to speak, Kwanga angrily scolded, and Jun Ranye was about to successfully provoke her anger. Ha ha. Ha ha. I haven't heard such a funny joke for a long time. Ling Zhaoxue, you're really becoming more and more interesting. Jun Ranye seemed to have struggled to hold back his smile, squinting his eyes at you Kwanga and even exaggeratedly wiping away the non-existent tears from the corners of his eyes. Falling in love with me, impossible. Kwanga looked at Jun Ranye and her indomitable nature made her speak. Jun Ranye smiled and extended his index finger, swaying in front of Kwanga's eyes. It's impossible. Such a positive tone. However, letting you continue to love me is my ultimate goal. Jun Ranye continued to speak, his long hair flowing like a cloud brushing past Kwanga's eyes, carrying a seductive scent. Is it to prove your male charm? Crazy Songs mock and speak. Jun Ranye sneered and shook his head, no, it's to conquer you. The words were domineering, and Ling Zhaoxue's sudden change of personality sparked a strong interest in him. This indomitable and seemingly arrogant temperament made him want to conquer, which would be an interesting process. At this moment, Kwanga suddenly smiled. The smile was full of confidence, wild and unrestrained. If it weren't for the ugly half of the cheek affecting this beauty, the smile would have been enchanting. Only the wild song spoke lightly, that's it. So, Jun Ranye, do you dare to bet for 6 months? Let's see if you have conquered me and let me continue to love you, or if you have been seduced by me and fallen in love with me. It's hard to extricate yourself. Amazing gambling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 69 Book Bar. www.69shu.pro. The Yuquang song seems to be covered with a layer of light, which is extremely dazzling. The appearance of such self-confidence makes Jun Ranye a little stunned. It seems that he is trying to identify the authenticity of her words, and wants to see what tricks this woman is playing. But except for the bright eyes like obsidian, he can't see a little guilty and dodge. Are you provoking me? Jun Ranye forced his gaze into Yuquanga's eyes and asked. Yuquanga laughed loudly, then narrowed her eyes and said, Are you afraid? Afraid? Your Highness doesn't have this word in his dictionary yet. With a flick of his robe, Jun Ranye spoke up and asked, What's the bet? Is this serious? Great. Surprisingly, I have such confidence in my own charm. The bet is for 6 months. If you conquer me, I will be your servant for life and never betray you. But if you fall in love with me, then you must recognize me as your master and use me for life. Do you dare? Do you dare? The 3 big characters echoed coldly in the air, leaving only the sound of gasping for breath on the entire training ground. Everyone looked at the arrogant woman with disbelief, and Jun Ranye also stared at her in amazement. He felt an inexplicable emotional suppression in his chest, and in front of him were a pair of incredibly intimidating eyes, so confident that his chest was full, as if declaring to heaven and earth that she would never fall in love with him. Proud like him, how could he lose to a woman whom he had never seen before? Okay. Finally, Jun Ranye lifted the corners of his mouth and a good word fell. Ling Zhaoxue, you will pay the price for your blind confidence. He said. Kwanga just sneered, Jun Ranye, you will regret your pride and arrogance for life. Words have no basis, words serve as evidence. Jun Ranye raised his eyebrows and said, taking a step back. Kwanga immediately felt the energy that suppressed him dissipate, nodded, and didn't say much. This man is really confident in himself. But how could she lose? A wild shadow suddenly appeared in her mind, dressed in a cold and enchanting black robe, with domineering eyes that seemed to have dominated her destiny for thousands of years, freezing her heart and preventing her from being tempted by any man. This is the figure she has dreamed of countless times since she was young. It's a wonderful feeling. In the blink of an eye, someone brought the paper and pen, and a promise was engraved on the paper. Jun Ranye signed his name without any hesitation, with a gorgeous charm, a high sun above the clouds, and a hint of introverted arrogance. It was indeed a good character. Kwanga took the paper, reached out for a pen, and quickly signed his name. Dragons and phoenixes danced, with outstanding charm. The surprise in Jun Ranye's eyes flashed by. Where is the notary public? Such a serious bet naturally requires a notary public, but at this moment it is blank. Jun Ranye glanced under the arena and saw that it was the positions of Ling Fengchen and Yi Yanzhao. Can these two be okay? Kwanga just glanced lightly before shaking his head and saying, they don't carry enough weight. I need the handwritten signature and notarization of Prince Lianyue, the leader of the 8 young masters. Ling Zhaoxue, who do you think you are? Yi, why are you making such a boring bet with this ugly woman? Yi Yanzhao roared out angrily. Today, he was really devastated by this woman. He doesn't have enough weight. Her older brother doesn't have enough weight. Who does she think she is? Jun Ranye turned a deaf ear and raised his right hand. Chasing the wind, chasing the moon, immediately head to the east of the sky, and warmly invite Prince Lianyue to come to Phoenix City. Become famous by gambling. Ling Zhaoxue's name quickly spread among the people, nobles, and aristocratic families, and was well known to everyone. Beloved person. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. 69 Book Bar. www.69shu pro, standing down the document and waiting for the signature of the notary public, there was no need to leave it. At this moment, the butler hurriedly reported that it was Ling Tianhai who wanted to see Ling Zhaoxue. Ling Tianhai, the head of the Ling family, is also the father of Ling Zhaoxue. What is he looking for me for? Quanga frowned and asked, in Ling Zhaoxue's memory, this person is very rare. Having this father is the same as not having this father. His daughter has died, and he doesn't know what it means to see her at this time. It's really unfilial to directly refer to my father as him in a heinous way. No wonder you're not favored. A commoner is not as cultured as a young lady. The butler harbored resentment in his heart, but dared not show any unusual expression on his face. He only said in a conventional manner, report to Miss San, the master only said he was waiting for you in the study. Do you want me to accompany you? Jun Ranye hugged her chest and said. Quanga gave him a cold glance and said, no need. Putting down these two words, he lifted his foot and walked away without even shaking Jun Ranye's gaze. Hello. Ling Zhaoxue. Jun Ranye saw her turn around and left, lazily shouting. Is there anything else? The tone is full of impatience. Jun Ranye was not angry either. He leaned into Yu Quanga's ear and said, once you have made a written statement, there will be no more remorse. Ling Zhaoxue, this hall is waiting for the day when you cry and beg. Oh. By the way, I forgot to tell you that there is someone I love in this hall long ago, and they will be back in the next few days. I didn't plan to make it public, but it doesn't matter if I tell you now. She is your own sister. Ling Zhaoxue. With her here, no one can love you. Ling Zhaoxue, the eldest daughter of the Ling family, is a true daughter of 1,000 gold. She is gentle, beautiful, understanding, proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and praised by the world for her talent and beauty. Quanga squinted his eyes, didn't speak, turned around and jumped off the arena. Without looking at the others behind him, he left straight away. Jun Ranye looked at the gradually distant figure, clearly looking disheveled, but how could that figure be so proud? He also curled his lips, jumped off the arena, and walked away. A bet, a lifetime of fate, at this moment, no one knows what will happen in the future. My body was very tired, and I didn't rest. I just changed into clean clothes and went to the study to find Ling Tianhai. I knocked on the door, and a deep and suppressed voice came from inside, come in. Pushing the door open, I saw Ling Tianhai with his back to her. What can I do for you? Quanga asked, with a lukewarm attitude. You have finally changed. After a while, Ling Tianhai spoke in a suppressed voice with a sigh of relief. He slowly turned his head, his gaze somewhat complicated, and Quanga didn't understand what he meant by these words, but he remained silent and waited for his next words. I heard that you beat up Miss Yi of the Yi family today, offended young Master Yi of the Yi family, and made a bet with His Royal Highness, right? The news really spread quickly. It is estimated that Ling Tianhai knew the news immediately. What do you want to say? Quanga's voice was cold and hard, and she couldn't get close to everyone in this unfamiliar world, especially the man in front of her. He looked tough and had sculpted features, indicating that he must have been a beautiful man when he was young. That's why she married several women, and thus became a illegitimate woman. She doesn't like such feelings. Do you really hate me in your heart? Suddenly, the desolate voice of Ling Tian rang out. Crazy song for a moment.